The Attorney General for Washington, D.C. has filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration to end the National Guard deployment in the Capitol.
All right, here we go. The legal challenge comes after the Guard received orders to remain in D.C. until November 30th.
Alexandra Hoff is live from the White House with the details this morning. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning to you. Yeah, it was interesting that those two announcements both came yesterday, that the D.C. National Guard would be continuing their time here in D.C. through the end of November, and that also that the city's attorney general has filed suit because it continues this political dance where you have Democratic leaders here kind of flip-flopping on their take on having this federalization here, but at the same time receiving a lot of praise for falling crime rates. Let's see what this is what D.C.'s AG Brian Schwab said yesterday about this lawsuit. He wrote, "No American city should have the U.S. military, particularly out-of-state military, who are not accountable to the residents and untrained in local law enforcement policing its streets. It's D.C. today, but could be any other city tomorrow. We've filed this action to put an end to this illegal federal overreach." Now, White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson, she hit back stating this lawsuit is nothing more than another attempt at the detriment of D.C. residents and visitors to undermine the president's highly successful operations. Let's take a look at those operations. We got some new numbers here since August 7th. According to the White House, over 1,800 arrests have been made. 16 no gang members have been arrested, including MS-13, Tren de Aragua members. 5 missing children have been recovered, and 188 firearms have been seized. Now, President Trump has indicated interest in deploying the same kind of crime solution to cities like Chicago, with the administration saying blue governors and mayors should be making this ask, really. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker says if troops are sent, he's headed straight to court.
We're going to immediately go to court. If National Guard or other military troops are deployed to the city of Chicago, immediately go to court. So that's going to be our first line of defense, is getting a court to issue a TRO or other injunction against that activity.
And Governor Pritzker, he does anticipate that this increased federal action is going to take place starting tomorrow, and really that would be enhanced ICE enforcement. Guys.
All right, thanks so much. So he's saying, I'm going to go to court to stop the crackdown on crime.
Right.
I'm going to go to court to make sure the National Guard, the FBI, enhanced ICE, and federal officers don't do what they did in D.C. That's controlled crime. Clean up the city and make people feel safer. I'm going to make sure that the homeless encampments stay intact, with a threat to your kids as they go to school. And I think this is really risky for him. So he's the same guy who said, I need the National Guard because I got to make sure the DNC is Chicago is a safe city for the DNC. Same thing with the governor of New York. I got to make sure New York doesn't get National Guard. What, but you needed him in the subway?
They're essentially saying, I love the violence so much more than I love Donald Trump. And because I hate Donald Trump so much, we're going to push the violence in our community. We refuse to clean it up.
So it's so dumb on two reasons. First of all, you got the National Guard that are doing the checkpoints. That's how they're getting a lot of the guns off the streets, because they're checking these vehicles. They're seeing who's going from street to street. Also, because you got all the feds there protecting the national monuments and everything, and you surge those resources into the community, so the National Guard picked up those shifts to protect the monuments. So it's just not smart. Take the win.
David Axelrod from Chicago, famously. He weighs in and just says, listen, Pritzker, this is not a good move. Stop thinking 2028.
I would be careful about playing 28 politics on this issue, because the right answer is we'll take all the help we can get, as long as it's appropriate help, as long as it's stuff that will really help. I mean, these National Guardsmen aren't even trained to do that work. They're not authorized to do that work. So, you know, send us the resources that we need. We want to work with you. If there are if there are people doing violent crimes here who are illegal immigrants, we want them out of our city. We'll work with you on that.
By the way, it would help 2028. You could say, I was a governor. If you want to be a legitimate candidate, that work with the Republican president when it helped my city and my state.
He's saying the same thing we've been saying this entire time, that every Republican's been saying, every conservative, and even the moderates in D.C., if you ask them, or we went to the streets of Chicago and they said, we want the National Guard, we need this. He's saying, take all the help you can get. If you're seeing crime go down, 0 homicides, what was it, for like almost two weeks in a row in D.C., the numbers drop dramatically because it's working. Policing works.
But they also have to stop saying that the National Guard is not trained for this. They are trained for this. The Secretary of Defense used to do the same job. It was good enough for the Democrats in Chicago when they had the National Guard there to handle the crowds, to handle control of the streets and the areas for the national convention. So don't tell us this talking point that they're not trained to do it.
Isn't it more about just the presence? I mean, we saw that video of Chicago at that gas station
100%.
where everyone was walking into the gas station or in the parking lot while people were filling up their tanks with these big guns. If you had National Guard out on the street, those guys are going to pick the next gas station. They're not going to invade that one. So it's more about presence.
Well, for those people who think that the president's not going to do it, like I watched that clown, that DA, that Philadelphia DA, Krasner. He actually made chicken noises to say the president's chickening out of, think about this, the president's chickening out of sending security forces into Chicago, which is the murder capital of the country. And he made, I can't get my head around it. Meanwhile, the Pentagon, if you think the president's backing off, the Pentagon has approved the use of the Chicago Navy base for ICE and possible military operations. So the president does want to make sure he doesn't deploy them, get them pulled back because of what happened with that San Francisco ruling. But I just think that he's under pretty steady ground. So let's just see what the appeal looks like out in California before he puts them in Chicago. In the meantime, go to New Orleans. The governor wants you there. Governor Landry wants you. And even though the mayor, the scandal-ridden mayor of New Orleans doesn't, who cares?